Welcome to How to Bring a Coaching Mindset to the Arts and Culture sector. It is the seventh in a series of webinars designed to build the capacity of Canadian consultants working in the arts and culture sector as we recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Sue Etworthy, and I am a member of the Volunteer Board of Directors of Arts Consultants Canada. Before we begin, we wish to recognize that the members of Arts Consultants Canada are honored to live and work on the traditional territory of the First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples from coast to coast to coast, whose presence here reaches back to time immemorial. We acknowledge the historical oppression of their lands and cultures in what we now know as Canada, and fervently believe that the arts contribute to healing and decolonizing journey that we all share together. We honor their long history of welcoming many other people to this beautiful territory, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work here. I am zooming in from the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Haudenosaunee. The territory is within the lands protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. For those who do not know, Arts Consultants Canada is the National Association of Professional Consultants working in the arts. For the past 17 years, we have served as a community of practice for individual consultants who work to support Canada's arts and culture sector by providing services to members and clients across the country. Our membership adheres to a professional code of conduct, and our programs include professional development activities such as these, mentorship, podcasts, and networking, online and in person. Thank you to Canadian Heritage for supporting the series, the members of our program committee, Maurizio and Jennifer, and all of you who chose to submit questions in advance. And now a bit about our host, Jewell Goodwyn. She's an artist, consultant, and mentor. Jewell Goodwyn has worked in the arts sector for nearly 3 decades, most noticeably as a national leader in the artist-run center community. During her over 20 years, as president and founding executive director of artist-run centers and collectives of Ontario, she collaborated with fellow arts service organizations to form a provincial coalition to strengthen and increase public investment in the arts in Ontario. Since 2020, Jewell has served as an Arts Fest mentor for business in the arts and worked with over 300 arts administrators nationwide. She's committed to cultivating environments that are equitable, inclusive, and respectful. Her areas of expertise include organizational development, board governance, strategic practice and planning, profile building, and network building. Jewell is a member of the ACCA and currently serves as co-chair of the programming committee. Hi, Jewell.
Hi, thank you very much, Sue. It's 30 arts organizations nationwide with, I wish it was 300, but I'm still working on it. Thank you.
You'll get there.
Thank you. Thank you, Sue, and welcome everyone. I'm zooming in from London, Ontario, which is on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenapewauk, Potawatomi, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in these territories. Welcome to this live webinar, How to Bring the Coaching Mindset to the Arts and Culture sector. I'll be introducing our guest speakers momentarily. Coaching is a mindset. Coaching is a fundamental leadership skill that has been shown to increase trust, collaboration, and productivity in organizations. Organizations that have a coaching culture significantly outperform those without. However, it is still uncommon for arts and culture leaders and consultants to have experienced coaching or to have training in coaching. Today, consultant and leadership coach Lucy White, CPQC, and Authenticity Coach Karen Choi will clarify what coaching is and isn't. You'll learn how to have a coaching mindset when working one-on-one or with teams. Karen and Lucy will conduct 2 live mini coaching sessions today to demonstrate a few simple coaching techniques that you can use immediately. It's a privilege and my pleasure to introduce our guest presenters, life and leadership coach consultant Lucy White, CPQC, she, her, is a certified mental fitness coach and skilled cultural executive who takes a strategic, creative, and collaborative approach to achieve superior client results. Her experience includes more than 30 years in the arts and culture sector as a nonprofit and association leader. As a life and leadership coach, Lucy can help you reach your potential on your terms. She asks intuitive, powerful questions to help you tap into your own strengths and knowledge, develop your course of action, and achieve your leadership goals. As a consultant and interim nonprofit leader, Lucy is known for outstanding strategic thinking, communication, and relationship building skills. Her work focuses primarily on interim leadership engagements, strategic planning, governance, and meeting facilitation. Lucy is a certified intelligence coach, a member of the International Coaches Federation, IFC in short, and of Arts Consultant Canada. Welcome, Lucy. Jewel. It's okay. I'll go to Jill. And now a little bit about Authenticity Coach Karen Choi. Hi, Karen. With her trademark enthusiasm and values-centered approach to collaboration, Authenticity Coach Karen Choi, her, is committed to help arts organizations connect with audiences in two ways. In coaching, Karen helps arts administrators and performing artists energize their work and lives. Trained as a professional coach at Adler Professional Graduate School, she specializes in authentic decision-making, creating clarity, breaking through inner barriers, and burnout recovery. Recent clients include the Association Opera in Canada and Women in Musical Leadership led by Tapestry Opera. Through content strategy and marketing, Karen works with clients to create fun and meaningful experiences that boost engagement and brand awareness. Recent clients include Loose Tea Music Theater and Sweetwater Music Festival.
Thanks, Jewel.
We are so happy to have you both here with us today. Thanks to those who turned on your cameras and audio and consented to being recorded. The recorded webinar will be on ACCA's channel on YouTube and posted on several social media platforms such as LinkedIn. Today's format will be in the form of a conversation and dialogue with you. I'm going to pass the floor over to Karen, who has a safe and welcome message for you.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see you. As Jewel mentioned, we'd love for this to be more of a conversation and less of a presentation, less of a monologue and more of a dialogue with you, our peers. And we'd love for this to be an interactive workshop. It's designed so that we've invited you to turn on your camera so we can see who's in the room, engage in the chat, and use those reaction buttons to put up an emoji if you like, because your engagement makes this more fun and we'll all get so much more learning out of our time together. And there will be room for discussion, and we'll prompt you to put up your hand and turn on your mic to share. And of course, if showing up in any of the ways I just mentioned isn't for you, that's okay too. There's no pressure to participate. You are in full control of your experience today. And I just want to introduce one of the keys to a coaching mindset, and the intention that we hope to create today is about holding space, which basically means to be present with someone in a non-judgmental, supportive, and compassionate way. And that's the intention for this session, this space, to create a safe and accepting environment where we can all express ourselves, feel our emotions, and explore thoughts and feelings without the threat and fear of being criticized, rejected, or invalidated. Consider it a practice in staying curious and not judgy. So can we all agree to creating this space together? Perhaps put up a thumbs up emoji and practice those emojis if you like. Thank you.
I'm doing some icebreakers today. So if you want to take your mute button off, you can either use the chat, but we'd like to know where you're from. Erica, it's nice to see you. Geraldine, welcome. We'd love to hear where you're from. And Robert is from Dance Umbrella, Ontario. Karen says hi. Let's see. Toronto. Welcome. Hi, Erica, Geraldine, Ingrid. And who else do we have in here? Okay. How would you describe your practice? Karen says she's been coaching for 3 years and new to consulting. For myself, I'm new to consulting just before COVID, actually. Lucy White is said she's based in Toronto, and her practice is split between working with small nonprofits and coaching nonprofit leaders. Oh my, thank you, Lucy. Her favorite song right now is Van Morrison, Bright Side of the Road. Thank you. And Carol from Saskatoon. Oh my, Karen, somebody's pronounced that. I do not know how to pronounce it. I'm not going to try. Lovely, beautiful. Can you say that one more time, Carol? And I love your last name, Gray Eyes. I love it. Thanks for jumping on too. And Karen, her favorite music right now is Concerto by Two Pianos by Francis Poulenc. Is that Poulenc? I don't know how to pronounce the last name.
That's okay.
And Carol is a provincial arts funding consultant for 13 years. No small potatoes. And Geraldine is at the very beginning of her career as arts consultant after being an arts manager and arts manager educator for 20 years. And she describes it as creating, facilitating, consulting with the focus on cultivating safe spaces in arts and culture. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, Jewell, I'm looking at the time and I'm going to push this along.
Oh,
Although
perfect.
we're not,
Perfect.
maybe we can have a chat about BTS another time for those who are into Korean pop music. All right, let's dig in. Thank you, Jewell. So we're going to start this conversation by talking about what a coaching mindset is and making the distinction between coaching and consulting. Almost everybody here has been doing consulting for some length of time. And so we're familiar with what that's about. But moving to a coaching mindset does require a shift in the way that we approach the interaction with our clients. So, Karen, I think I'm going to start us off talking a bit about. So we know in a consulting mindset that we're being hired as experts. We have expertise, we have skills, we have experience, and we're hired to come in and make recommendations. And sometimes I describe this as when I'm hired as a consultant, I'm hired to come in and tell people what to do. Now, I frame that as a recommendation, but that's what they're asking me to do. The coaching mindset is almost an exact opposite to that. It's fundamentally different. And one of the fundamental differences is that a coach is not the expert in the room. In a coaching relationship, a coaching mindset, we're there with our clients in a relationship of peer to peer. So we're being asked not to give answers, but in fact, we are there to ask questions. We're going to dig into each of these in more detail. So I'm just going to just skip over them pretty quickly. One of the things that people get confused about between coaching and, say, therapy or counseling is that coaches view the client as not needing to be fixed. The client is coming to us, and I'll use some vocabulary from my coaching school. we believe that the client is naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. So from that position, we are going to be eliciting their inner wisdom about their situation, their values, and what's important to them in terms of future orientation. Coaching has a future orientation. This is different from therapy, which often will look backwards. Coaching is very much rooted in the present moment and looking forward. So the client is the expert. And the reason we questions is that we want to bring out their inner wisdom. We ask our client to come with a topic of the day, but we don't coach the topic. We don't coach the problem. We coach the person because, again, it's their inner wisdom. It's their um, perspective. It's their mindset that we're trying to work with. And I think it's also really important to think about the fact that the client is always in choice. Now, what we mean by this is that when a client comes to us for coaching, they are free to work with us in whatever way that they feel comfortable. So we might suggest something in a session that the client will say, no, I'm not really comfortable with that, or I think you misunderstand me. Uh, or they may walk away from a session having agreed to do something and then not done it. So we take the view that whatever the client is choosing to, whatever the client does is what they are choosing to do. Sometimes this is a hurdle that clients need to, or a barrier that they need to work through to understand that they in fact are in choice all the time. But as a coach, this is how we're holding them. I think the only other thing that I would add to this is the importance of intuition. Um, a good consultant is, of course, going to bring their intuition into the room with them. But coaching is fundamentally tapping into the intuition of both the coach and the client about what is needed, how to move forward, what the barriers might be, what the desires and dreams are, and so on. So I had an experience myself being coached by a master coach. She asked me to sit cross-legged on the floor with her and facing. And she asked me a question. And when I answered it, she leaned backwards and rolled onto her back and showed me her bum and then rolled back down. I mean, that was the most absurd thing I'd ever experienced, but it was an amazing moment of I laughed. It broke through a lot of my inhibitions. It completely shifted the energy. And when I asked her later, why would you do that? Why would like what was the what were your reasons? She said, I don't know. It just seemed like the thing to do at the time. So sometimes coaching can that intuition piece can be playful and spontaneous, like that example, and sometimes it can be a much more soulful moment of deep intuition between the coach and the client. But I just wanted to throw that as an example of some variation in the way that we think about coaching. So, Karen, what have I left out?
I think you have covered everything that the coaching mindset, how it's different from consulting. Let's keep going.
And of course, I know Jewell said this, but feel free to put questions in the chat,
Mhm.
and we'll get to a Q&A section in a minute, and we'll start dealing, responding to your questions. There we go. So in the chat, we'd like to know, what is your experience of coaching? Have you received formal training to be a coach? And then third, what do you wish you'd known the first time you coached? We'd love to see your answers in the chat.
And the reason why we ask these questions is so that we know where we're all starting from in this conversation. What is your experience with coaching? Have you been coached before? Maybe say yes or no in the chat.
Oh, we got
Huh,
2 new
great.
messages. Hold on. No formal training from Carol. No from Ingrid. And okay, Geraldine said she's received coaching and it was amazing, but not received any formal training. Another, and Erica is super interested in coaching and the coaching consultant idea. She thinks when she works with clients, she's often slipstreaming between these zones. I quite can appreciate that. And her training has been in books, leadership training, in terms of managing teams. And like myself, Eric has been coached with Lucy.
This is great. So everyone in the room has had some experience, more or less, of what it is like to work in a coaching conversation.
So I'm going to go back to the question, and sorry, I had trouble with the mute button. What do you wish you'd known the first time you coached? Would anyone like to join us in chat? Anyone that's whose video is on, would you like to jump in, unmute?
I'm not a master coach. I'll bow down to these amazing coaches here today. But I think the thing that I've learned the most when I've recognized I've been in coaching conversations has been just how important it is to keep your mouth shut and listen, like that intuition piece and the listening piece. The more I keep my mouth shut and just say things like, oh, hmm, anything else? Like those really, I feel like that's a big learning for me, is to turn off my consultancy telling you what to do thing and just shut up.
I think that skill of being able to hold silence and just listen, um, and hold silence when no one is talking, it's so powerful, and yet we are very afraid of it, as a rule. So I'm thinking increasingly being able to be silent is becoming one of my superpowers. That and parallel parking. Okay, let's go ahead. Move on. We can come back to chat if you think of something you want to put in the chat. We'll see it. Don't worry. Okay, and Karen, why don't you start us off about the element? I think you're starting us off about the. No, I'm doing it. Oh, can't read my own notes. So one of the most important element of coaching is that first conversation that builds the alliance between the client and the coach, or the coachee and the coach. I think that that coaching works because there is an element of that there's profound trust between ourselves and our client. If there's no trust, there's very likely to be very little coaching going on, because you're asking a person to share, and often to say out loud something they may have never said out loud to anyone else. They may have not even allowed themselves to think it. And so we need to build that trust to make that conversation possible. Um, and one of the major tools around building trust is confidentiality. So coaches have a code of conduct. We'll talk about that in a minute. And confidentiality is one of the paramount elements of that alliance. I have a coaching agreement that I use. And so I have lots of other things in the alliance. And I should just back up a minute and say that I want this myself. I want this to be a co-designed alliance. Now, as a business person, I have a contract that lists out the thing in the alliance. But it also leaves space for the whatever is going to be special or unique or individual about every relationship that I have with the client. So, talking about behaviors, what's going to be okay and what's not going to be okay is important. Obviously, I use humor in my coaching. And to give you an example, I was recently coaching an individual with autism, And they asked me not to use sarcasm because they couldn't understand it. And that was so helpful for me to know as the coach. And occasionally I would forget. But because we had the alliance, gave the client permission to say, I don't understand whether you're being literal or whether that's humor. So having that, having the ability to be specific about behaviors is really important. To use to harken back to the example of, showing someone your bottom, physical movement is something that a lot of coaches use. And so they might want to ask about, what's your mobility? What's your comfort level? Will you be okay if I ask you will you be in a place where you can jump up and down and, dance or spin like a top or do whatever movement is wanted in that moment. Another element about the alliance, which is, I think, so key, and this harkens back to coaching the person, not the problem, and our clients being naturally resourceful, creative, and whole, is that I like to articulate in my alliance who's responsible for what. So, for an example, my clients are all responsible for booking their own appointments. I don't chase them. I will remind them in conversation. I'll keep that door open, but ultimately they're responsible. So if they want to book 12 sessions with me and use 4, that's entirely up to them. And if they come to book at the last minute and I'm not available, well, that lose their choice. So I don't want to sound harsh, but I do want to be clear here that I'm holding them responsible for their life. I'm holding them accountable for their choices. And the last thing that I've been thinking about quite a lot, and I haven't put this into my agreement, and I haven't really dealt with it in my designing my alliance, but I'm thinking more and more about how do we repair the relationship when things go off the rails. So I had a client the other day who something went wrong with Calendly, email, I don't know what. Um, and I was expecting them on a call and they didn't have it in their calendar, despite the fact that they set it up. And they were kind of upset that this appointment got missed. And so it made me start to think about, well, how do I repair this lapse perhaps in the relationship? And so I'm really interested in how other coaches and other professionals do that repair piece. So anyway, I'll stop there because I think we are now over to Karen to talk about um, curiosity.
Thanks, Lucy. I hadn't thought about that repair piece in the building of the relationship, but if I could add one more next level in the coaching relationship is also how do we come to agreement once the coaching relationship has closed? What will our relationship be as coach and coachee outside of the relationship? How do we move forward from our last conversation? That has been a really kind of like a beautiful closing way to with the clients that I've had, because I find in my experience so far is that the coaching relationship and partnership is so intimate, and because of all that trust and confidentiality, it's not just for that time frame, it continues, right?
Mhm.
And many of us, we continue on as friends because of the relationship has become so close. So moving on into defining the topic, actually, Lucy, you didn't get into that piece.
I didn't. And that's one of the things that I ask my clients to bring is what is the topic of the individual sections um, and we can also start at the beginning of the cycle with what is the topic of the cycle. So um, this is similar to to consulting in that it's helpful to have an outcome that people are looking for, so we know how to define whether or not this coaching has been successful. But in each session, I also ask people to bring a topic. Um, this, unlike consulting, the topic can often shift 360 degrees several times in one session, and certainly over the cycle of the contract. Because as we get into our lives and as we get into the coaching, people will discover that the topic that they came for, let's say imposter syndrome, Karen and I were laughing about have each of us having imposter syndrome before this workshop. They come thinking they have imposter syndrome, and in a couple of sessions, we discover that in fact the topic is something quite different because we've dug down into that person's values, their desires, their limiting beliefs. Really dug in, and so the topic can change. But the bottom line here is that ultimately no matter what I think the topic should be, it's my job as a coach to make sure that the client is bringing the topic that they think is important and pressing for them. Thanks, Karen, for picking up on that.
Yeah, that's really the important piece, is the responsibility, right? And because in the coaching relationship, the coach and client roles are at an even playing field, in that we each bring our own unique strengths to the conversation. The coach brings your strengths of curiosity, framing the conversation, asking the questions, and the support, while the client brings their expertise and strengths and knowing who they are and the ownership, the goals, and what they're working towards. So where are we now? Of being curious. So when bringing a coaching mindset and designing the relationship, a huge part that supports the curiosity piece, to me, I feel, is consent and courage. The consent that between the two partners, that we agree that we are both going to be courageous. We agree that we are both flawed humans, and that mistakes, or nobody is perfect, right? And that there shouldn't be an intimidation. I think that one of these beautiful curiosity pieces and courage is to come as who you are in that moment. And so curiosity to me is that, well, actually, if I may ask you first, as the consultants in the room, why is curiosity important in consulting? If you want to unmute and speak up, wonderful. If you want to just type it in the chat. Why is curiosity important in consulting? Some of the things we've talked about, how consulting and coaching are very different, but also very similar, is that curiosity in consulting helps us to build trust, right? Clients are more likely to trust and respect your opinion and your expertise when you show an interest in their business. Erica says, discovery. Yes, uncover the actual problem or the whole problem, not just perceived surface issues. Lucy says, by asking, often you find that the problem isn't the actual problem. Yeah. So when we're curious, we're also better understanding the perspective of the client and their needs and their goals, not just at a surface level, but we go so much deeper. It enhances our problem-solving skills because you are looking at it from multiple angles. Robert says it aids consultants to learn more about the business and therefore provide more tailored support. Yes, absolutely. And that is what makes you a better consultant, right? Carol Gray Eyes, yes, the beginner's mind. We don't know what is ahead. That helps us to foster innovation, fuel our creativity, and lead to those solutions that may not have been considered otherwise. That's why they've hired you, right? Because their team hasn't been able to figure out how to move forward, and they have engaged you to find something new. Ingrid says, be very observant. Yes, thank you so much. So when we're curious as a consultant and as a coach, it's the same kind of curiosity. It helps to lead the discovery process, to uncover those answers and draw on insights, exploring their world with them rather than superimposing your world onto theirs. And very much that beginner's mindset. Carol, you make me think of a quote by a Zen Buddhist monk named Shunryu Suzuki. He says, if your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. So in this case, when you bring a coaching mindset, you are coming as a beginner, as someone who is open to learning with the client rather than coming in to impose what you already have decided should be the answer. In a great book about coaching, and it's a great resource that Lucy's going to share later, it's called Coactive Coaching. There's a great analogy there that describes how curiosity plays as a consultant and a coach. So as a consultant, you're like a general contractor who's been hired to come in and build an addition to the house with the materials you bring to the site. Whereas a coach, you come in as a collaborator with your building experience and your expertise and build with the materials that are already on the site. How is that landing for people? Oh, thanks, Jewell. Thrown up, not thrown up, but put up a heart emoji. So I can offer 3 tips for practicing curiosity as a coach and a consultant, which will better your practice in both areas. And number 1 is wondering is wonderful. What are you interested in learning about the person or the situation? And listen for something you don't already know. And number 2 is we want to come into the space empathizing, not criticizing what they've already done, but empathizing with what they've tried, what has worked, what hasn't worked. You want to try to understand the person's perspective by putting yourself in their shoes. And when you're really focused on trying to understand what it's like to go through these challenges or how their mind is working, you're so involved and so present with that learning that there's actually no room for judgment. There's actually no room for outside opinions to come in. And that will help you to ask even more thoughtful questions and learn more. And the third tip for practicing curiosity is embracing the uncertainty. I know that the uncertainty can be scary often for the coaching client or our consulting client. Like, what's to come? What do we do? What will happen? But when we embrace the uncertainty and you have the confidence there, that will invite the client to also step into that space, thus reducing some of their pressure to be right and lowering the risk of being wrong, which then opens up that space for the innovation and the creativity to start bubbling up. How is that sounding to everyone so far? Okay. So moving on from being curious, we're going to go into asking powerful questions. So naturally, when we come into a space asking, as a curious person, like think about a kid who's just asking, why? They just want to know. Like lately, my 7-year-old daughter has been asking me at bedtime, tell me something I don't already know. And she's just so open and so present and willing to learn. And I have a feeling that many of the people in this room or watching in the replay have this like love of learning. And if you can bring that strength to the forward when you're asking powerful questions, then asking the questions becomes less about a head game and it starts to flow more. So I want to offer 3 tips for asking powerful questions today. One thing that got in my way when I was in my coaching training was, the word powerful holds so much. What does powerful mean? Does it have to be a smart question? Does it have to be like this complicated question? Does it have, like, there was so much expectation around powerful. And I just want to start off by saying powerful can be simple. Powerful can actually be very dumb too. Like thinking about the beginner's mindset, powerful just is a question perhaps that the coachee hasn't considered before that will open up a portal or a door to more options, more insight, more awareness, which will then give them more choices, right? To take action on. So the powerful questions are questions that start with what, when, and how. This helps people think and generate awareness and ownership, right? It creates a tone that seeks to clarify, understand, connect, and help to come to mutual agreement or to commitment. And it helps to lead to action. Like, think about the times when someone asks you an open-ended question, the conversation can continue. It can flow, it can open up, rather than a closed question, which is a yes or no. And how can I think of an example? Or even a why question is something you want to avoid in a coaching conversation. Think about all the times you've been asked why. Sometimes it feels like you need to justify or prove your position. So from a coach's perspective, they will just start like, why do you think this is important? Well, they're going to tell you why they think it's important, and they're just going to stick to that line of thinking. Whereas, what is important about this? That opens up so many more possibilities. And that really is our role as the coach and consultant, I think, is to open up the possibilities rather than to prove why or why not what we're working on right now is working or not working. Like, that's just old information. We want new information. We do have a resource to share with you around asking powerful questions. I'll give you a few more examples, like, what is possible? What if it works out exactly as you want it to? What is the urge? Or what are you craving? When we're in an exploration kind of place, what part of the situation have you not yet explored? What is just one more possibility? Like, what else is a very simple and dumb question, right? But it can actually open up to so many more choices, because in this phase of holding space without judgment, making space for new things to come around, the what else, who knows what can come from that question. Another question that might be great for you when in coaching and consulting is, when clarifying something, what do you mean by that? Or what is the part that is not yet clear, right? Like, when we say, well, what's clear about that? We're just bringing out, again, information that is already known. What is clear? When you ask the opposite, what is not clear yet? It gets the brain thinking into different areas. So we do have a really great online resource to share with you at the end of this session around these types of magical and powerful questions. But really, it is about starting with your curiosity and moving forward. Okay, so next is listening. I loved that in the beginning, everyone, the listening component around coaching, we've all acknowledged, is the most powerful. And there are 3 lessons that I've learned in listening that really helped me in my coaching. And the first level is listening level 1. This is when you're very self-focused and you're internally hearing what's going on in your own head. What does this mean to me? And you're paying more attention to your own judgments or opinions. Can you think of a time when you're in a meeting and you're like, oh, I don't get it. I don't understand what they're trying to say. Or why is this so important to them? It's not important to me. Or what's lunch? What is lunch? And you can notice when your train of thought moves away from the person you're listening to. Now, the next level is level 2 listening. It's external listening. This is the active listening, when your sharp focus is on the other person. You're listening for their words, their expressions, their emotions, everything that they're bringing to the conversation. You're noticing what they say, how they say it, what they're not saying, their body language, their smiles or their tears. This is like very single channel listening. And specifically in coaching, you're listening for their values, their decisions, their visions, the action that they can take. And I think this is different in consulting, is that, again, the information you're listening to in coaching is about the person, not about the problem. You're not trying to understand the problem better. You're trying to listen more about what's going on with the person. And the third level of listening is global listening. This is open listening. I love the work by Pauline Oliveros, who does work on deep listening. She says that she kind of describes deep listening as this: walk so silently that the bottoms of your feet become ears. And this is, if External listening, like level 2 listening, where you're just listening to one person, is like a single channel on the radio. Whereas global listening is like you're a full radio field. So you are seeing, hearing, feeling. This is a place where you really access your intuition. And when you access your intuition, it creates a space for the client to also access theirs. And that is totally higher thinking and more expansive possibilities. Have I covered what we need to know about curiosity, listening, and asking powerful questions?
I think you did a brilliant job.
Okay, thank you.
Agreed. We have 5 minutes before the demo sessions can begin.
Okay. So thanks, Jewell. I'm just going to go through the next little bit pretty quickly. I think some of this we've covered already, and others things are more or less self-explanatory. Um, because coaching has a present day and forward-looking orientation, one of the things that I think is really important is that we follow where the present energy is. So a client might be talking, and you're listening, and then suddenly something shifts in their tone of voice, their body language, their energy level. You think, oh, what's that about? Now it might be in the present moment that person is angry or happy or excited or sad. You just want to take note of that as something to perhaps follow, and then continue listening. But you might want to just come in with a powerful question, such as, I notice a shift in your energy. Did you notice it? Can you talk about it a bit? Where in your body are you feeling that, and so on? That's something I think is a great little tip. The taking action is about the forward orientation. So one of the things in the positive intelligence program that I teach is mental fitness is that it's the insights that you get in coaching are amazing, but insights without action fade away over time. And we've all had that experience of being in this great webinar like this one. And then, 6 weeks later, all those great intentions to read the resources or, whatever your start a new line of business or whatever it is, just fades away because you haven't matched your insight with some action. So I think it's very important for a coach to um, work with the client to decide what action they're going to take to further the insight. And then there's an accountability piece, right? And this is where it's really important for most of us to have an accountability partner. And a coach is often uh, a really great accountability partner because it's a judgment-free zone. You either do this thing or you don't do this thing. And there's, probably something to be looked at in either choice. And so at the end of every coaching session, I try to find one area of accountability with the client that they can move the action of the day forward. I put code of conduct up here because I think this is one of those things that isn't spoken about enough, but is quite important. And one of the reasons I'm a member of Arts Consultants Canada is we have a code of conduct. So I sign up and agree as a member of ACCA to follow the code of conduct. So my clients know that they can hold me responsible in certain ways, right? And as a member of the International Coach Federation, there is also a code of conduct. Now, most coaching schools will have something like this, but the International Coach Federation, I think, is the largest accrediting body in the world and is the best known in terms of their code of conduct. And again, here we're talking about, now I can't actually see my own slides because of this control bar. Come on, go over there. Okay. So confidentiality, we touched on boundaries. This is where, as a coach, you are obliged, you strive to set good, healthy boundaries between yourself and your client. So that's going to differ coach to coach. As an example, I don't do coaching work on Friday afternoons. So if you email me with a question, I already have told you that I'm not going to work on Friday afternoon on coaching. So that's a boundary that I hold. Um, Another kind of boundary is self-regulation. So this is an internal thing, right? Where we manage our own emotions, our own judgments, our own, and I'll use the technical word here, our own shit. So then we're not bringing it into our session. So if we have a client that triggers us, and you will for sure have a client that triggers you. If you have a client whose issues are very similar to your own and you find yourself really getting overly in a way that's not helpful and that boundary is starting to dissolve, you're obliged to step back and do that self-regulation piece. So when people tell me that they've coached without any coach training, one of the first things I ask myself, and I am going to be watching for if I'm working with them, is have they done the work on themselves so that they are actually able to self-regulate and hold those boundaries? One of the things that coaches don't do, not all coaches do, but many of us do, is we have some kind of peer support or supervisory support when we get into situations that we need guidance or help. So I had a question the other day that I asked a group, actually it's a Facebook group, just of coaches from my coaching school, about how to follow up on a particular incident that happened between me and a client and the client's sponsor who was their employer. And that was not a situation that particular situation I hadn't encountered. So I was able to get that peer support, figure out how I wanted to move forward. So that's another thing about using a code of conduct to bring professionalism into a profession that does not have is not regulated. So if we want to not be regulated, I mean, I don't care one way or another, but if we don't want to be regulated, the way to ensure that is to have good, strong codes of conduct and follow them. Okay, let's push on.
Yes, we have time to move on to your demos. We've got 25 minutes before 2:30. This will be Lucy being coached by Karen. Is that correct?
Karen, can we do it in 5 minutes?
Yeah, we could try. So we're going to try to hit all those elements of coaching in 5 minutes. And you listen for what you noticed in terms of the different techniques that we just offered to you and how they worked. So Lucy, are we ready to start?
Let's do it.
Okay. So Lucy, what is the situation or the issue that you're bringing to coaching today?
So this is a real issue. I am working as an interim executive director with a very small organization. And when I took the contract, I was very clear that I don't do fundraising. I don't have any expertise in fundraising. I don't know how to do fundraising. And it makes me kind of crazy. And of course, 6 months into the gig, they asked me to start fundraising. There's something is going on. I cannot actually just say no. So I would like to figure out how to say no to this scope creep or scope leap in this case.
So you'd like to figure out how to say no to adding fundraising to one of the jobs that you're doing.
Yes.
What is getting in the way right now of saying no? You've okay.
I have said no in as many ways as I can, as I can figure out how to say no without just saying no. And I feel like I'd have to have a hissy fit for my no to be heard. And I don't want to have a hissy fit.
How do you want to say no?
I want to say no in a way that is heard for more than 30 seconds. So that when I say no to the board chair, she doesn't bring it up again at the next board meeting and put me on the spot. So there's something that's going on where the way I'm saying no is not being heard, and I want to be heard.
You want to be heard. So the thing that's going on, is it within you? What's going on inside you when you think about saying no in this way that you're being heard?
I get very agitated. I feel like I can feel the energy get very sharp, spiky. Oh, I feel a bit sorry for myself.
Sorry for yourself?
Like, I feel a bit sorry for myself. Like, oh my God, nobody ever listens to me. um, and uh, I know there's a danger of what's going on because I'll roll my eyes,
Mm.
which is I'm now learned when I'm rolling my eyes, I am deep in my doo doo. Like I'm really
Mm.
not being honest.
So you're agitated by yourself, kind of feeling sorry for yourself. You're rolling your eyes at yourself. And so how could you say no? Like, how could you say no in coming from a more powerful place of Lucy?
I I think what I need to do is I think I need to check my facts. I need to go back and look at my agreement with them and make sure that nowhere in there that it says I'm going to do fundraising. Like I need to make sure that's true. And then I need to um, ask the board chair for a conversation about the fundraising issue, which is starting to be a critical thing. It's getting in the way of our relationship. Um, as a consultant, I feel like I need to come up with some solution, and that's part of the problem. I don't have an obvious solution in these particular circumstances. Kind of tricky, but I could ask her what she thinks are our options. Because the rolling the eyes thing in board meetings, that is not very cool or professional.
No. I acknowledge your self-awareness in those moments.
Thank you.
So by you fact checking your contract, by setting up a conversation with the board, and asking questions rather than coming with a solution, like letting yourself go of the responsibility to have a solution. Where does that bring you to now? Like, does that help
Yeah.
you calm the agitation?
Well, it's made me realize that what the agitation is over top of my reluctance to be vulnerable, and it meant I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
But that this is a skill set I don't have. How I've got through 30 years in the nonprofit sector without actually fundraising. Grant writing, I can do fundraising. And the agitation and the eye rolling and the victimation is all about not wanting to admit vulnerability. This is not something that I can do. I don't have an answer.
Have you been in these situations before?
Oh no, I'm perfect. Yes, I I haven't been in these situations before where sometimes I can dive in and learn things, but I don't want any job where fundraising is an important element. That's not for me. So I don't the normal things that I would do, read up, study, practice. I don't have any interest in doing that in this circumstance.
So you're very
So,
clear on that, and you've already stated that to them. So where are you now when it comes to how you can say no in a way that you feel heard?
I I think I feel resolved uh, to ask for the conversation, to check the facts, ask for the conversation, and then to follow up in writing so that, in the next board meeting, if she's forgotten or refuses to listen or whatever, I can, you know, I'll feel more confident about that no. I'll be able to say some version of no again. Thank you.
Okay.
How many minutes is that?
I lost track of time.
I know that's the problem. All right.
2:14. 2:14.
Okay.
So it's a little bit later.
So let's just do a quick debrief.
Mhm.
So in the chat or raise your hand, like what surprised you about the coaching and which of the coaching elements did you notice?
I, for example, as the coach, noticed when I was thinking about myself saying, oh, what's the next question going to be? And as soon as I noticed that, I had to come back to listening to you. So going from that level 1 to level 2 listening.
I noticed that as well. As the client, I felt you go away and come back.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm often I have a coach myself, of course. So I do notice that uh, when I'm the client. Okay. Geraldine, you have a question or a comment?
No, just an observation of like, Karen, you just showed so much affirmation of, Lucy, your wisdom, your internal wisdom. Um, and so that was really lovely to observe.
Thank you, Geraldine. Kayla says she
Okay.
noticed the following of the energy. Robert loved the open dialogue and enjoyed the constant questions without answers. And Carol says, fascinating. Being in that brave open space, very generous. Yeah, thank you.
Right. I'm sorry to be rushing, but let's get on to the next thing. Now, I would love to coach somebody 5 minutes if someone would like to volunteer. If we don't get a volunteer, I'll coach Karen. It's a chance, free coaching. In the coaching classes, coaching breakouts, there's like 500 people want to be coached always. Okay, Karen, you're up.
Okay, this is a question around my own coaching and consulting practice. Something that I've noticed in the last few weeks is that I have commitment issues when it comes to who I serve and the problems that we work through. So, and I've come to a distinction. It's not about the current clients that I have. It really comes out when it's around creating offers and programs and marketing the work that I do and how I can help and who I can help. Because as a creative person, my ideas are always changing. But as a business person, I feel like I need to just stick to one thing. And so what I could get coaching on is either how to accept this part of me that, I'm still kind of ebbing and flowing or finding that business offering, or how do I just commit to one thing? So there's two options there. My question that I'm bringing to coaching is, how do I commit to just one thing? Or how can I come to accept that it's okay to do it this way and I will find the way somehow?
Okay. What feelings come up for you when you think about making commitment?
What feelings come up for me when think about making a commitment? and I'm stuck to it forever, and that I can't change my mind, and I
Ah,
feel trapped, and I feel restricted and constricted, and I feel like I can't flow or be creative in a box. Like, this whole coaching practice is about breaking out of the box in my own life and helping clients break out of their own boxes. And so that's how I feel. Yeah.
so
Commitment.
so I'm hearing that you feel when you think about when you think about commitment, you feel trapped, you feel boxed in, you feel that what you want to do is the opposite of being committed. It my words, squashes your creativity. And I heard a lot of energy in it's forever.
Yeah. It
Right?
chokes. It's very choking.
Oh yeah.
Forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you put your hands here for a minute? 'Cause that
Mhm.
was the gesture you made around commitment and you feel choked at the idea of
Mhm.
commitment. Okay.
So one of the
Let's
things that
hear.
I'm noticing is uh, this expression. That's why I'm choking myself in a way. I'm choking off an expression of an artist identity and the choking of as an entrepreneur identity. And I guess what I'm struggling with is finding a way to bring them both together in a way that is successful for both of them.
Right. And now I'm just going to I'm just going to leap over here because of time. So you have a belief here. I think this
Mhm.
belief actually lives here that you can't have a creative and a business together. You have to
Mhm.
make choices and you have to make commitments. And so the commit chokes off the creative part,
Mhm.
right? So that belief is you're stuck on is that you can't do both.
Mhm.
So in mental fitness, one of the things we like to do is we like to see if we can shift that perspective. So shift from the belief that you can be creative and a business person in the same practice by looking at, is there a gift or an opportunity in this moment that you're in of feeling the restriction and the choking?
What is the gift?
What could
Sorry, I
be the
don't.
gift? So if you had a moment to think about what you might learn as a result of this, what would be your answer?
Where does that belief come from, and what could I believe? What could I believe instead?
Mhm.
That's what's coming to me, whether it makes sense or not. Because ultimately, I am committed to being both an artist and a business person. So commitment there is not the issue. Perhaps even commitment is not an issue. It's just this idea that may or may not be true, which is probably not true, that it is forever and that it is constricting because business and art are both creative places. Um, that's the shift I'm having. It's not a commitment issue. It is actually what it's a lie about what is constricting or what the container looks like and how it's not wrong.
Not wrong.
Yeah.
You are not wrong in the way in which you want to go about your practice.
Mhm.
The way you want your business to be isn't wrong.
Mhm. Yes, this is it's so funny. to have this space to come to it, because I work with my clients in the same way, in that they come to this realization, my way is okay. And I think I'm having that same realization that my way, my process is okay.
So if we go back to your original question that you posed is, can I be at ease with this idea that my practice is not going to have that kind of committed offer that you expected it should have, right? Like, could you be okay with doing it your way?
Yeah, I can be okay with doing my way because I can't seem to do it any other way.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Lucy. So I will keep going forward without trying to change the approach. Just trusting that my way is okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So I'd leave you, you're welcome. I'd leave you with this question about what are all the options that you have to be creative as you build your business?
What are the options that I have to be
What are
creative with my business?
all the options?
Mm-hmm.
And I would leave you with a coach challenge. Do you
Mm-hmm.
up for that?
Mm-hmm.
100 options. Could you write those out?
Yeah.
Journal 100 options
Of how I can be creative in my business.
in your business.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Cool.
You're welcome.
I like that you added those last two parts of not just action, but also a challenge. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we want to forward the action, right? Like, we have the insight. Now I want to forward the action. And now I'm answering the next question, which are actually for the group. So what coaching elements did you see this time? What surprised you about the coaching? I think it says coach's choices. I can't quite see that. Yes, the coach's choices. And as Karen pointed out, one of the most powerful questions in coaching. And what else? Anybody have some thoughts they want to share? Jewel.
I love this session because it applies to so many people that are in the creative field, that they're balancing their entrepreneurial self, the business. It's almost like two separate minds are going, as well as their artistic self. I love, love, love the action piece and the homework, the challenge, to write it down. It reminds me, Lucy, of the yes and exercise. And in the journaling that you could probably give a pretty quick synopsis of that. But with yes and, you don't eliminate any of your responses, as dumb as they might seem. And so getting 100, you just keep rolling with it. So I love that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jewel. If we'd had more time, I would have done the yes and practice, that yes and game, which is a improv kind of game to generate ideas. And as Jewel alludes, that it's those creative, crazy ideas where the real juice comes, which is very different, I'll point out, than how I was trained as the facilitator, which was to find the things that everybody liked the most, right? The little red sticky dots. And as a creative person in that facilitation room, I always thought, oh, yeah, but those wild out of the box ideas, those are maybe the ones that are the most interesting and useful. And that wasn't my training. So I've sort of implemented some of my coaching into my facilitation to make sure that those out of the box ideas are the ones that get a little bit of time. So at least we can find out whether they're crazy or they're actually innovative. Who else has a comment? Geraldine? Are you?
You need to unmute.
Yep.
Yep.
Trying to raise my hand and unmute at the same time. I was wondering, when do you decide, like, there's the listening and following the coachee, but I noticed that sometimes there's a reference to content, so like the seven intelligences or a quote. When do you decide that it's an appropriate time to insert that some information to maybe open up the coachee to think about, oh, how does what I'm talking about connect with this other piece of information? Because it feels different than listening and asking questions and following the coachee. It's you're now inserting something that's new into the conversation. And how do you decide when to do that is my question.
What's your answer, Karen?
That's a really great question. Intuition comes into play there. When I do it in session, I ask myself, is this following the client or is this me bringing something to the client? And if it is absolutely me bringing something to the client, then I ask, may I offer something? So it creates that distinction that it's kind of outside. Yeah.
I do the same thing if I'm having a wildly, what I think of as maybe a wildly intuitive moment. I will ask for permission to share it. Like, I'm observing something. Would you like to hear it? Because I don't want to insert my intuition, which may or may not be valid. It just may not be at the right moment for the client. And there's an expression that I've heard numerous times, something like, does this need to be said? Right? Do I, as the coach, need to say anything at all? And if I do, is this the thing that needs to be said? And I
That's
tend to be a pretty chatty kind of coach. So that's something I have to think about a lot to like self-regulate.
Yeah, that's a great one. Does it need to be said? Is it about you or is it about the coachee?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like am I gonna wow them with my knowledge of 20th century poetry or coaching theory? Yeah. Yeah. Usually no. I don't need to say that. Anyone else? Okay. Let's press on. We've got some resources to share with you. Okay. So in the show notes or in the slides or however this is going to be shared with the community, we've included some information about these are not recommendations. What we're trying to do here is show you a range of options. So I trained at the Coactive Training Institute. Karen trained at the Adler. Um, most of the business schools have executive coaching programs. And the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching is another great school. So there are lots of options out there. And the thing to think about is, are they ICF credentialed? Because that means that the ICF has actually looked at what they're offering and has made a determination that this meets the standards of the International Coach Federation. If it's not ICF credentialed, it may be fine, but it may not. And obviously, if it's $7 and you got it on the internet, it's probably not a legitimate school. Professional development about coaching. It was a little trickier for me to find because everywhere I went was all professional coach stuff. But I know the local chapters of the International Coaching Federation. New York is a huge one. Toronto has a big one. I think Ottawa has one. And Vancouver. They will offer accessible professional development. So, for $30 or something, you can participate, I think, in their work. One of my favorite, Positive Psychology Association is a really great source for information generally about positive psychology movement. And they do have coaching as part of their areas of work. And the last one is actually a Toronto fellow he's Australian he lives in Toronto, named Michael Bungay Stanier. He's one of my favorite coach gurus because he's so down to earth, so self-deprecating, very funny, quirky guy. and super smart. So I always recommend Michael. I like to call him by Michael because he lives in Toronto, so I can't. So some reading material, the advice trap, Michael's, I think the book about that's most useful for people who aren't coaches, but are leaders who want to use coaching in their organization. The Coaching Habit, another book by Michael, is more about how do you actually get into the habit of coaching rather than telling people. Brene Brown, further down, Dare to Lead. She also offers Dare to Lead accreditation, which a lot of people have found really interesting. There's a couple of coaching magazines. And Karen, you added the Coaching Circle Powerful Question link, which I haven't looked at yet. It looks really exciting.
That is a full list of questions that you could use in different scenarios and just gets you thinking into that, getting into that question mode and seeing how simple they are, yet powerful.
Okay. Maurizio says, yes, we'll make the resources available in the show note. And he says, don't forget to recommend my episode of At the Mic, where Jewell and I talk about coaching. Yes, I must recommend that. It is excellent. And that's available on the ACC website. Finally, yes, recording will be available. And this is how you get in touch with Karen. This is how you get in touch with me. Karen, did you want to say anything about your practice? What availability you have? Are you taking new clients right now?
I am taking new clients right now, and you could just go to my website, karenchoi.co, or send me an email, and we could set up a call to talk about what it is that you might want to be working on or working toward, and just see if we're a good fit. And you can also find me on the socials. I hang out on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I understand that this is our first time getting to know each other, so you can kind of see what the personality is, my more of an approach to my work. And I just love to see you there and get to know you better in a more casual tone too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Karen does some fun videos. I can be found at lucywhite.ca. This was a marketing branding approach designed by my therapist. She said, how do people know you? I said, they know me by my name. She said, why not just call your company lucywhite.ca? I'm like, okay. I have a mental fitness for nonprofit leaders starting on April 1st. And if you mention ACCA, I will happily give you 15% off the regular price. And you can sign up for that on my website. And I also offer free introduction to coaching. Do we like each other? Are we a fit sessions? And you can also sign up for schedule one of those on my website as well. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us for the extra time that we needed because we were a bit slow to get started today. See, I'm just going to double check what's in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. And are you going to wind us up, Jewell?
Yes, I am. I wanted to thank you very much. This next little plug for Lucy, the mental fitness program, it starts exactly 2 weeks from now. So if you're interested, by all means, highly recommend it. There are people saying goodbye in the chat. I don't know if somebody would like to read it. Robert, Carol, Gray Eyes, thank you. Very grateful. I'd like to thank those that turned on their audio and turned on their videos today and joined us in conversation. I want to thank everybody who joined us, whether or not you did. Special thanks to our coaches, Karen Choi and Lucy White. It's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. Thanks to Maurizio. Maurizio, can you show yourself just for 5 minutes? He's our technical wizard at ACCA, and he has his own business. Sue Edworthy on the board of ACCA for doing the ACCA welcome. Last but not least, special thanks to Canadian Heritage. If we didn't get their funding, this webinar wouldn't have been possible. So we should have more conversations like these. Thank you, everybody. There's Maurizio. Thank you, Maurizio. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.